You are listening to the TV Obsessive podcast, brought to you by TVObsessive.com.
All right, welcome back to the TV Obsessive podcast. We're here today for episode 160. As always, I'm Cameron Crane, executive editor for TVObsessive.com. I'm joined by Ryan Kirksey, writer and contributor for the site. How you doing today, Ryan?
Feeling good. Just came from the city I live in. Just hosted the Portugal and Congo World Cup match. Just came from a watch party. Saw Congo score their first ever World Cup goal. It was exciting. You know, those 1-1 draws are really something. You know.
Yeah, we've had some exciting draws, I suppose. I've been watching the World Cup a little bit. I'm a little on the fence right now in terms of how into it I'm going to get because I've watched some matches and I felt like I was on the precipice of because it's on right now. It's on all the time.
All
Like
the
you
time.
literally spend all day watching World Cup, and I did that one day. Maybe it was Friday or something, where like I pretty much just watched World Cup soccer like all day. You know, and there's like little breaks in between the matches or whatever. And then, well, I don't know if I want to do that like every day. You know, so I'm trying to figure out exactly how much to watch, how much not to watch. It'll probably get a little bit easier, I guess, as we get to the knockout round and so on. And
That's right.
maybe
That's
more
right.
storylines have developed. And, you know, so like you mentioned, Congo, like, do they make it to the knockout round ultimately? Does Cape Verde make it to the knockout round? Does Scotland make it to the knockout round? Like, I don't know. I was talking to someone about this the other day, and you know, okay, fine. Like, if the U.S. Mutant Ninja Turtles do well, like, okay, I'll root for them. But they usually don't do, you know, like the U.S. team's not generally gonna like win the World Cup, the men's team anyway. So every time around when I do get into it, it's like I'm looking for more of that Cinderella team and that kind
Yes.
of storyline than anything else. So those are the ones I kind of have my eye on. Now, with
Yeah.
Scotland, did you see? I forget. Go ahead.
I've been pretty intrigued by the ones I have watched so far. You know, our city hosting some of these. I guess I've been more in tune than normal. But yeah, I mean, it is literally there was a match that started last night at midnight Eastern. You could have turned on a live match, you know, where you live at midnight. I watched some of it because I was falling asleep. But I mean, this is on from noon until late at night.
That's what I'm saying. Like the one night, and maybe it was. I don't even remember which match it was now. I think it was on Saturday because I watched the NBA Finals, you know, and I was kind of in that sports mind frame a little bit. And I did. I like turned on the World Cup game at midnight. And then, you know, one thing I do enjoy though about watching soccer is that you know when the game's going to end.
Yes.
I mean, particularly now, like if it gets further on to where they might go to, uh, when they get to the point where they no longer have draws,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you know, okay, doors open to more possibilities. But right now, hey, if it's tied at the end of 90 minutes or just a tie, it's kind of nice. You basically know when the game's going to end. You know what I mean? I mean, you don't know how many minutes are going to put on at the end or whatever, but it's usually not more than like 6 or 7 minutes at most.
No,
So
yeah, I've noticed that every match, let's say, one standard deviation of a match time is about, 3 minutes on either side of 2 hours. I mean, you know exactly when it's going to end.
yeah, and that includes the halftime, right? And it feels like they're not. The term's eluding me now in terms of what they call this when they add the time on at the end of the half. But it feels like they're not putting on significantly more time, even though they have these hydration breaks,
Yeah, that's right.
um, which is not a thing. And you know, I've been watching actually primarily on Telemundo on Peacock in
Mm.
Spanish. Um, in part because they don't go to commercial during the pause that they hidratación. They just like stay on the
Oh,
field, but
okay.
they're still, um, and you know, also because I like watching things on my computer and like with the Fox, I like put it on TV, and that's just a weird quirk on my part. But I also like my first experience with World Cup soccer as a kid in the '80s was tuning into the Spanish language channel in the Detroit area on some like you know broadcast TV network that was hard to get in. It was fuzzy and
Yeah.
all of that. So it's like the idea of watching World Cup soccer with Spanish announcers, it feels sort of right to me. I don't
Well,
understand much. I
that
took 4
that
years of Spanish in high school, but I don't understand.
that's a pretty good hack because we're 5 days in. I'm already sick of the same four commercials, every match.
Yeah, I mean, there are some commercials. Don't get me wrong. Like there are commercials
Yeah.
during halftime, and I find it kind of entertaining too how the announcers will, it's all in Spanish except for brand names. So like they'll be going along and they'll be like, "Un telemundo y peacock," you know. They don't. It's funny to me because they translate the names of the countries,
Yes, yes.
right? But they don't translate something like peacock.
Nope.
You know, so
You can't.
it's just anyway, maybe that's probably don't want to
Yeah,
bore
there's your
soccer's
weekly
on
World
top.
World Cup recap. Yeah.
We'll see what happens from here. It's June 17th, by the way. If I haven't mentioned yet, I usually try to do that up front, 2026. What else have you been watching this week, Ryan?
Well, I did finally, knowing that there's a lot coming in the next 3 to 4 weeks. I just wanted to catch up on a show that came out a couple of months ago, I think on Netflix. The Burrows, the Duffer Brothers executive produced project. This is with Alfred Molina and Gina Davis. Bill Pullman is in this. I went in not knowing anything, which I have not done in a while, and so this was sort of a pleasant surprise. This is just a fun show, just kind of I mean, it's Duffer Brothers, so there's going to be some elements of the mysterious and the supernatural, and I found this to just be fun about a group of people who live in a very upscale retirement town, and some of the very odd things that start happening to them. And so, not knowing anything about it going in, I've been pleasantly surprised. I'm exactly halfway through. I'll knock it out this weekend before the flood of TV starts coming at us. But it's good enough for me halfway through that I'm going to finish it.
Well, yeah, that's been on my radar. Do you get any like Close Encounters vibes, or I mean, is it?
Yes, I would
Yeah.
say, it's interesting. We went and watched Disclosure Day this weekend as well. I get more Close Encounters vibe from this show than I did from the movie Disclosure Day. Interestingly, so yeah, there's a lot of influence there, and we're going to talk about a show today that's drawn a lot of influence from other things, and I can see a lot of the most popular. I don't want to spoil anything. Most popular properties of the supernatural and sci-fi being pulled into this show. So Duffer Brothers just sort of done another good job with that.
Oh yeah, I'll check that one out at some point. Speaking of the flood of new TV coming up, we got Sugar coming out on Friday. So I'm going to write on that again. Apologies to regular listeners if you're hoping we were going to do podcast coverage where we've had
Mhm.
other plans. But you can check out my articles on TVObscast.com. And probably it's pre-embargo, so I shouldn't say anything more really right now. But still, it's Sugar, and it's kind of interesting what they're up to. Um, yeah, okay. All right. Well, I won't say anymore. I won't say
It
anymore.
is the
Uh,
hardest show to talk about if you're not trying to not spoil it.
it, we were talking about how I don't remember if it was while we were recording or not a couple weeks ago how even in the season 2 trailer they're like we're going to withhold the major thing
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so I don't know. Beyond that, I dipped in. I started watching some Three's Company.
Oh boy.
Um,
Okay.
well, so I'm kind of trying to do this idea again on the website tvobsessive.com of summer reruns,
Hmm.
and kind of put forward this idea a few years ago. We've had some good articles, but the basic idea has been kind of like looking back at a show that's a bit older and revisiting it, and maybe some critical reassessment or whatever, but maybe a little bit lighter than some other stuff that we do. Um, and in my mind, Three's Company is like the perfect show for this. This is what I have in mind, like stuff when I was a kid, or there was an article a couple years ago on Married with Children, which was kind of interesting, I
Hmm.
thought. But I do, if people listening are curious, the criteria, it doesn't have to be quite that old because like some people write for the site who are significantly younger than you and I,
Yeah.
so I realize it's like, I might feel weird about it. But yeah, if you want to write something for like 2010, I will acknowledge it was 16 years ago now. Okay. Um, but I don't know, did you ever watch Three's Company? Have we talked about this before? I can't
I
remember.
mean, I've probably seen 10 episodes in my life total. I understand the concept, understand the dynamics and even the sexual politics of the show, but I can't say I've spent a lot of time with it.
See, that's why it's been on my mind. It's a sexual politics angle because I haven't watched it regularly in a while. But for me, it was like it was just on all the time when I was a kid in the 80s. It was in syndication.
Yeah.
Um, and then as a kind of second part of my life where I was watching it was probably right around the year 2000 when it was on Nick at Night every night.
Mm. Yeah.
There was a period where, just having basic cable, um, I was in the habit of regularly watching the like block of sitcoms on Nick at Night. So I have no idea how many episodes of Three's Company I've never seen because if it's in syndication, like they're not showing them in order or whatever. The whole series is on Peacock for what it's worth. If you want to go watch Three's Company, this one's been on my mind. I'm thinking about writing an article on it, and so I put it on the other day. I very quickly watched the first season, which is only 6 episodes, and then I'll probably watch a bit more. I think I'm going to jump around a bit. But this has been kind of what's on my mind in terms of writing an article on it potentially is how you mentioned the sexual politics. I think it's appropriate term. It's what comes to mind for me. But it's a weird premise along those lines. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
found myself wondering, what would the youth today think about this? How does it land? Is the show progressive? Because if people aren't aware, like the starting premise is basically that in order to be able to live in an apartment with two women, Jack um, pretends to be gay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's a weird kind of, and then I don't know. I'm still putting my thoughts together on it, but I just really thinking about how it's like, okay, so their landlord, Mr. Roper, would not be okay with him living in an apartment with two women if he were straight,
Yep.
like morally, but
It's
but somehow he is okay with it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's
it's
weird.
both it's both progressive and very much of its time, I think, if I remember correctly.
It's a weird, yeah, it's a weird like thing. But I started thinking about it in terms of just like I look the cards on the table. I think am going to argue in the direction of it being more progressive than anything else, because I think it is putting forward all this stuff as a source of humor
Yeah.
in lighthearted way. So anyway,
Yeah.
still thinking about that, but I really rather enjoyed it. But yeah, it was just like because again, just like zip through, you know, a couple hours of watching Three's Company, no problem. It holds up, in my opinion, in that regard. It's so funny and all sorts of double entendre and all that kind of stuff. So, anyhow, I keep an eye out for that. I'm thinking about doing that. I haven't put myself on the schedule yet. Make my own privilege of. We'll see. Um, We're going to talk about Widow's Bay, the latter part of the podcast. Hopefully, you've been listening along throughout this season. Really glad that we decided to cover this one on the podcast, by the way, Ryan. I mean, I think we've
Yes.
both been enjoying it a lot. And as I recall, I think we decided basically without having seen it. So it just like fit our schedule, looked intriguing. It was really good. And it's been renewed for season 2. And hooray for the thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, especially considering what we're about to talk about, I am thrilled there is a season two. A lot, again, you never know the behind the scenes of these things, but I guess they always try to set up in case they are granted a second, third, fourth season, and this one definitely lends itself to more storytelling. And so while it was probably something we could have presumed early on, it has been made definitive within the last week.
Yeah, and when we're talking about the show with spoilers on the table, we'll probably talk a bit about what we might expect or hope for in season 2, that sort of thing. But at the moment, yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm surprised. It really does seem like this one sort of caught fire. It feels
Yes.
like, quote unquote, everyone's watching it, and that's great. It's well deserved. It's really good. It's a really great show. Uh, I read beyond the renewal something about Katie Dippold getting one of these quote overall deals with Apple.
Mm,
I never know what that means. You know what I
interesting.
mean? I like because sometimes it means uh, you give Britt Marling a bunch of money and she produces nothing. And then sometimes it means something like what happened with the Duffer Brothers, who you were mentioning earlier, who post Stranger Things have a couple of other things now coming out on Netflix. So um, who knows? But good for her. I mean, I presume it at least means Katie Dippold getting some money. So
Yeah.
good for her. Congratulations. That's great. She did that. And we've been working, I mean, going back to being a writer on Parks and Recreation and doing other stuff. It's really kind of, I always think it's cool if you pay enough attention to kind of follow some of these arcs when occasionally you will notice someone who, maybe has gone from being a lower level writer, maybe getting credit on an episode or two or whatever, and then now
Yeah.
they're running their own show. So definitely really looking forward to season 2 whenever we get it. And I hope it's on more of a hope it's on more of a slow horses kind of timeline than a Severance kind of timeline. You mentioned 2 Apple TV shows.
Yeah. Yeah. Slow Horses.
Um,
We haven't talked about that show in a while. It got renewed for season 6. They are now famous for at the end of the finale of each season, they debut a trailer for the season to come. That's what we need more of right
oh
there.
well, yeah, that's what we need more. Of course, yeah, the season of that show only like 6 episodes long, but
Yeah,
whatever, we'll
that's
take
true.
it. We'll take it. Let's see other things here. We've got this stood out to me because of the names involved. Did you take a look at this in terms of the casting announcement for Only Murders in the Building, a show I
Yeah,
still have not watched?
this is yeah, this is interesting and also interesting timing for me. Wife and I just watched, much later than when it came out, but just watched season 5, and got through that. And so, yeah, this is, I don't know. It's interesting. I really want, more of your opinion on this. In the seasons we've had recently, we've had Meryl Streeps and we've had Christoph Waltz and we've had all these big Hollywood names. Now it seems like we're going in on does this say 2 Doctor Who's, some Harry Potter alums. So we're kind of traveling overseas to get a lot of our recruits for season 6.
Yeah, I've gathered, and maybe it was in this deadline article I put in our show sheet. I've gathered that for whatever reason, the season's going to take place in London or something like that. Um,
Yeah, I can see
and
that
that
from what we've seen. Yep.
and that would be a fit where, okay, so kind of like how in the previous season they got a bunch of sort of American celebrities who I think mostly were playing themselves. So now I'm curious, like, are these UK celebrities going to play themselves? Maybe, yeah. Um, but yeah, David Tennant, Jenny Whittaker, Nicola Coughlan, some others on here. As a fan of Doctor Who and other things like,
Hmm.
we just go to Broadchurch, but he's got both David Tennant and Jodie Whittaker in Broadchurch as well. Um, yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe I'll finally start watching Only Murders in the Building and catch up. Although, I mean, I have gathered that each season is relatively self-contained. Is that right? I mean, how lost would I be right if I just jumped in with the new season?
I don't think you'd be lost at all. The premise when this show began, especially for the first couple seasons, was these 3 sort of unlikely partners become podcasters and also solve murders, and they only have decided they're going to solve murders in the building they live in Manhattan. Now, after the success of the show, and you have to expand it to 6 and maybe even 7, 8 seasons, they're kind of playing fast and loose with that idea. You would have a building where no one lived in it anymore if you kept having people getting murdered in it. So they've had to expand that a little bit. But yeah, largely the seasons are self-contained. You might get a murder or the introduction to who might be murdered at the end of a season, but it's going to tell you the whole story once another season starts.
Right on. Yeah, it's remained on my radar. I don't know. So much to watch, so little time. And one thing I find myself thinking about this week too, perhaps in part because we are on the sort of precipice of all the stuff coming out this summer that I know both of us want to watch, and just more generally, I was going through TV news and all of that. I started thinking, I think we're finally back, and it's
Yeah.
been so long that it feels weird. I'm saying, like, in terms of the amount of TV that's out there. When I say back, I mean like 2019.
Hmm.
And I don't know that it's felt like there was so much since then for various reasons, right? Stuff being shut down, delayed because of the pandemic, and then of course we had the strikes, 2023. Um, and I have no data to back that up. And like probably I'm wrong. Probably they're making a bit less television or whatever for like economic reasons. I'm not sure. Or maybe it was because I found myself scrolling through Peacock. That's what it was. Because I was pushing it like watching World Cup on Peacock and watching Three's Company on Peacock. And I don't do this very often, I guess, but I just started like scrolling through Peacock. It's like, oh my God, there is so much television
Yeah.
just on this one service. You know what I mean? Um, and new stuff and all of that. But yeah, trying to make a segue. I don't know how much we have to say about this news, but I thought it was worth hitting. I often find the business side of things to be maybe a bit boring. I do think I saw
Hmm.
also that the Paramount WBD thing is happening. I think they got government approval, but that's not what I was going to talk about. Apparently, Fox is buying Roku. Any thoughts about this, Ryan?
This was interesting to me only in the sense of who is buying this streamer and this provider of not only streaming service but streaming platforms. Fox, unless I'm mistaken and completely missing something, they have sort of the Fox News Live Nation streamer, but Fox itself does not have a streaming platform. Do they partner with any others? That may be sort of what they're setting up themselves up to do here if they don't.
They own Tubi.
They do on Tubi. Yep.
Yeah. And then a lot of their stuff ends up being available on Hulu. And I'm not sure exactly what the arrangement is there at this point. But you're right, like of the major um, networks, as it were. Fox
Yeah.
has been in this weird kind of space, I mean, it's been however many years now since CBS decided to launch CBS All Access, as it was called at the time, now Paramount Plus, and NBC launched Peacock, and there's no direct equivalent with Fox. Um,
Yeah.
ABC, I guess, I don't know, Hulu, Disney Plus. I guess they're also in a little bit of a weird space, but it's interesting. And I thought one thing that I thought was interesting in this Deadline article is how apparently, maybe it wasn't in this one, there was a previous one I didn't put the link onto, but apparently, like earlier in the week, there were rumors that Roku was going to sell and their stock went up. And then they sold the Fox and their stock went down. That was kind of
Yeah.
weird, like so apparently there's a little bit of trepidation amongst the investors about whether this really makes sense, whether it's going to work. I mean, in particular because of Roku as a hardware provider, right? Not
Right.
just a streaming
That's
service.
right.
And that Roku has always been more of a what they'll call like a Switzerland kind of play, like we're neutral. So it's interesting. I'm at least curious to see where it goes, what exactly they have in mind here. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to like maintain that brand of Roku a bit. Um, we also have the
Yeah.
Roku channel, which is primarily fast, and then Tubi, and I don't know. It's just kind of an odd arrangement, I suppose.
It just seems like we're past or we're about to move past the hardware phase, your Fire Sticks and your Apple TV boxes and your Roku, how there was a very short window of prominence there where you could watch for whatever you wanted as long as you had one of these devices. Now it's on every TV and it's on every computer, and you don't need that sort of mediator or middleman, as it were, in terms of the ability to watch these services. And so yeah, I can't see this being a purchase. This is $22 billion purchase. I can't see it being mainly for the hardware. It's got to be for these other more streaming appropriate or streaming necessary services. Yeah, with Tubi, Fox doesn't put new material or new shows out on Tubi. Roku's
No,
got very, very, very limited options. So it just seems to me that there's a positioning for that down the road.
yeah, we'll see. You're right. Tubi has been an attempt to kind of like craft its own brand in a way where it's almost like I mentioned it the other day to someone that Tubi is owned by Fox, and they weren't aware of that.
Yeah.
So I feel like your average consumer might not be. It kind of reminds me of remember Touchstone Pictures, which I
Mm,
don't believe
yeah.
exists anymore. It's like, well, this is owned by Disney, but we're not going to give this the Disney brand.
Right. Right.
This is more adult. So I don't
Yeah.
know if that's how they think about it or what, but curious to see because I still it would be easy to predict sometime in the relatively near future, perhaps everything boiling down to just like how many would it be? Like five conglomerates of media. Like I mean,
Yeah.
you've got like your ABC, Disney, and NBC Universal, Amazon, MGM, Paramount, Double Plus,
Paramount. Yep. Yep.
Warner Brothers. And that's a huge one. If that really does go through and happen, I don't know what's that going to mean. And we've talked about that before too. But whether we'll still have HBO Max as separate, or whether they'll lump it in under Paramount Plus or what.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, probably enough about this business. Um, Speaking of HBO, you want to talk a little bit about the new Larry David show? This is also
Yeah.
coming out
Just
soon. I
this
think before the next time we'll record.
that yeah, I think 1 week from actually maybe 1 week from now, June 26th, it says. I guess a little over a week. I mean, this is just a very quick question. Now that we've had a lot of descriptions, we've had a second trailer that's been released for this Larry David project called Life, Larry, and the Pursuit of Unhappiness, and almost History of America. With so much coming out over the next month, will this show at all be a priority for you?
I don't know. I was thinking about this. I was looking at my list of new TV shows in our Discord, and looking at this one. I'm really curious what it's going to be like.
Mm-hmm.
So there's part of me that wants to check it out and see what it's like, and then like maybe even write a review of it. And it's just going to come down to I was going to say whether I have time, but almost more whether I feel inspired to click the button at the right time, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's definitely not like it's not. I'm not willing to make an appointment viewing in the sense that I don't necessarily think it's going to be very good.
Right. Right.
I'm curious about whether it will be any good, and my lean going into it is probably it won't be very good. I don't know. What do you think? Do you have high hopes for this one, or
I can't say that I do. It doesn't seem like he's trying to squeeze Curb Your Enthusiasm into history necessarily. It's just more of um, oh, a satirical telling of this with guest stars lined up to play these different roles of these historical moments. I can't say it is going to, if this is a 29-minute, you can watch a sketch at a time, you can catch it over the course of a week. Yeah, I'll probably, catch things here and then, but these come out and are, 52 minutes long, and we've got to, sit through the whole thing to understand and grasp the story. I can't see myself making this a commitment over the next looks like it's gonna be about 7 or 8 weeks.
yeah, and the Obamas are involved.
Yeah.
I don't know what the tone of it's going to be like. I don't think it's going to be, like drunk history. Is the
Yeah.
tone going to be more? Is it going to be closer to Hamilton? This is part of why I'm worried. I feel like the tone's going to be closer to Hamilton, the musical.
Mm.
And like I literally just saw an article headline earlier today. I think maybe feel like published today. Sorry, I don't have the reference. I wasn't planning on mentioning this necessarily. But the headline I saw earlier today was something like "The age of Hamilton is dead."
Mm.
So like it's over. Like like Hamilton, you can't do that anymore. Or, not you can't do that anymore, but like that's a Obama era thing
I see.
that
Okay.
doesn't land in the same way, like or something like that. So I don't know. I definitely am curious. Um, I feel like I want to check it out so I can have an opinion about it. I guess that's what it boils down to. So we'll see
Yeah.
if I actually do. It's not so much I want to see it because I think I'm going to really enjoy it as I'm curious and want to have an opinion about it.
I'll check one out and we'll see how it is. That's I think where it comes down to for me.
Yeah, that's the upshot of what I was saying as well. Like
Yeah.
maybe I'll turn on the first episode and see what it's like. And yeah, we'll go from there. If it's good. Okay. Okay. Anyway, in the meantime, we're going to turn to the season finale of Widow's Bay. Excited to talk about that. To let people know where we're going from here as we're wrapping up our Widow's Bay coverage. We're going to hit on the final season of The Bear next week. Probably we're going to record on Friday, tentatively, but keep an eye out. So we've been recording on Wednesday, so probably won't be until Friday at the earliest next week. And then after that, we'll start doing Silo. So hopefully you all will stick with us. But today, we're to season 1, episode 10 of Widow's Bay, the season finale. So spoilers will be on the table for everything in season 1 of Widow's Bay after this brief musical interlude. And we'll be back with you in about 10 seconds.
Okay, we're back to talk about Widow's Bay on Apple TV, episode 10, the season 1 finale, titled We Hope You Enjoyed Your Time, written by Katie Dipple, directed by Hiro Murai. The team that brought us the first episode has been some of the strongest of the whole season. Plot summary: as everyone shelters from the storm that's pounding Widow's Bay, Patricia and Wick try to divide up rations and keep everyone calm while they ride out the storm. While there, Dale discovers videos that explain the island has been sacrificing people for years. Sheriff Bashir's wife goes into labor, and Evan and his friends explore the tunnels where they come across that mysterious chair that we've seen underground. While there, Ken, the custodian, finds them. Teens lock him inside, where something emerges and drags him through the cellar doors. At Ruth's house, Tom finds she's completely healthy and active. She even helps people around her community, causing him to really become conflicted about killing her and ending the island's curse. Tom eventually decides to poison her tea. She drinks it right before telling Tom about an affair that she had that led to the birth of Tom's wife, Lauren. Tom suddenly realizes that Evan must be the last remaining descendant of Richard Warren. Ruth survives the poison attempt, but Bashir shows up and shoots her because he does not want his child born on an island that is cursed. The following morning, the storm has passed, but we hear the church bell ring 8 times, signaling there must be new deaths that are required. I think this is my favorite show of the year. I'm just going to come out and say that we have a lot of year left to go. Obviously, there's a lot of things I'm looking forward to. I was tentative of how this could end and how it could end in a way that both satisfied a lot of things, but also set up what might be to come, especially after we learned the second season was coming. There's a lot to talk through here. I don't even know where to start. I just know that this first season, to echo something you said earlier, I could not be more thrilled that we decided to cover this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. Probably the best show. Well, okay, let me put it this way. I'll be very surprised if at the end of the year, I don't choose this as my best new TV show of 2026. And the question is more, do I end up thinking it's actually even just the best show, period, above, we've got the final season of Bear coming out next week. We've got Silo. We've got whatever else. And we could be, maybe there's something that's not quite on our radar yet that comes out later in the year that we end up thinking is just extraordinarily good. But man, really, really happy we decided to cover this show. And it's great. And it's been renewed for season 2. And I'm really excited about that. And in terms of where to start, let's not start there because we should hold off and maybe later talk about what we might be hoping for out of season 2. I guess, okay, as good a place to start as any. We had a comment on our YouTube video last week. So shout out to Breezy K4832. You called it. You got your trophies in the mail. Anyway, that the comment being, Breezy K thought that we were going to find out that Ruth had a secret pregnancy and that gave birth to Evan's mother and so on. And that does indeed seem to be the case. So that means when we do think about season 2, and this is probably the big thing. Of course, Tom's hiding it. He doesn't tell Bashir. He says he doesn't know. And then we've got the thing with the bells. So maybe I am kind of jumping the gun against my best intentions, but Dale discovers those film reels, right? And one thing we learn apparently is that it's supposed to be one sacrifice for each tolling of the bell. And the bell tolls 8 times. at the end of this episode, whereas it had told 9 times back in episode 2. I believe. I'll say I'm trusting the internet a little bit on that one. I didn't go back and watch and count myself,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I found multiple sources that said it was 9 tolls, which I figured it would be 9 tolls. So it lines up, right? So that means okay, well, you sacrifice one person, you gotta choose 8 more. Let the shenanigans ensue. I guess in terms of the broad strokes of what season 2 might get into.
So okay, so let's start there with saying we're getting a lot of understanding from the videos, from just explanation and things that we hear this episode about some of what has happened, what needs to happen, and what will happen in season 2. So let's just start with the bells necessarily. So 9 bells, I've seen that also confirmed in several places. 9 bells toll in episode 2, 8 bells toll at the end of here of episode 10, the finale. So that means that all the people the boogeyman killed, Shaman Todd, all these other people that died throughout the season, none of them count. You have to physically give a sacrifice in the room or in some other way to this entity or to this whatever it is for it to count against the number. So we're only down from 9 to 8 as opposed to, well, we've had a lot more than 8 people I think die on this in this season, but they didn't count apparently.
Have we? I mean, let's see. Shep, I think Shep died, right?
Yep,
The priest killed himself. I want to say a bit more about the priest here in a moment.
yep.
Um, you mentioned someone else, I think.
There's
Oh,
a couple.
the
There's
boogeyman.
at least a couple in the Boogeyman episode, and then Todd that gets sucked up by the tornado.
Yeah, yeah. So no, they don't count. The deal is that you got to feed me human sacrifices. Keep that kind of stuff from happening.
Yeah,
Come on, Richard Warren's descendant. You're not keeping no grain in the bargain. Like I guess that's the deal. Again, I continue to wonder. Like, um, I mean, I guess that maybe have we gotten an answer to that in terms of what it's no, because we've at least been given the premise that if Richard Warren's bloodline died out,
hmm
then that would get rid of the pact, which would stop all the bad stuff from happening. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's true for sure. I suppose maybe
yeah,
we shouldn't just buy it, but if we do, then I continue to wonder what are we getting out of this pact? You know what I mean? Like if we dissolve the pact, then there no longer be all of the bad stuff happening that we have to do sacrifices to avoid. Okay, I mean that's making sense, but like, what would it be like if the pact is gone altogether?
yeah,
Um, I wouldn't be surprised if actually that's a question that we would get an answer to in like season 4 or something
yeah,
like that. I
yeah.
suppose if the show goes that long.
The,
Um,
the the interesting thing to me, especially as they introduce these videos, right? So the videos look like
yeah,
they're reel to reel. They're decades old, presumably. But no one, Dale or others don't. I mean, don't understand what they are. Don't know what they are. Didn't know they were there. There used to be a system, something in place that had a procedure to select someone. You show them the video, like you have training manual essentially for going through this, and that over the decades has been lost for whatever reason. And so now there's sort of this chaos happening on the island. People getting sucked up in tornadoes, because I guess they just didn't go through the process of, we used to regularly sacrifice people and, sorry you were selected, but you were found wanting or you were a criminal or whatever it was. And so you got put into the sacrifice room. But because that system no longer exists, now we get all of this chaos happening on the island, it seems.
yeah, and I'm really curious about that. You use the word lost, but it also that gave me vibes of the show Lost in a certain way, finding the old films and so on. And I'm going to presume that was probably
There's there,
intentional
there's
or
there's a lot of lost in
not
this episode.
accidental.
There's a hatch. There's a thing coming out of the hatch. We don't know what it is. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, it's like one step removed from the entity being a smoke monster. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I think all of that's very much intentional, and I think it works as well. But I'm really wondering about this, so how long between sacrifices would be one approach to it. And I guess another is, well, what's happened in the interim here that the system has sort of fallen away.
Yeah.
The it would make the most sense to me if it's because it's a pretty long period of time. So like just guessing, let's say that those film reels were made in what, the 60s, maybe
Yeah.
1960s?
Yeah.
I was going to say almost 1950s, but yeah, okay, let's say it was 1960s. Then that would still be what we're saying, like, okay, 60 years or something. Um, but yeah, what exactly happened? That's probably a big area where further seasons of the show could, dig into that for material. It seems like from what we have seen here in season one that that Tom didn't know about this. But further, and maybe more striking to me, is it seems like the Reverend, Toby S's character, Reverend priest, whichever it is. He's got the collar thing, so I always want to say he's a priest. But again, I'm not. I don't think he's Catholic. But anyway, I don't know if we ever really got told that. Um, it seems like he was caught totally unawares, right?
Yeah.
So like, but at the same time, they've got the bells of the church chained up so that they can't toll, but they toll anyway. I don't know. Am I looking for too much logic here? I don't know. But it
Yeah.
seems like he has no idea until he reads that letter, and then we could probably make sense of the suicide along those lines. Go ahead.
It's like people were leaving clues for them. There was whatever this procedure that was in place, and then there were clues or notes or journal entries or letters left for them. It also seems like there were some gaps, maybe, right? So I know, um, is her name Rose? Is that Dale Dickey's character, Rose? She talks about the person.
Rosemary.
Rosemary, yeah. She talks about her predecessor who always told her never to go down there, but she didn't tell her why, right? So she has really no reason. And she does not hear till she hears the announcement that she understands why that is. We get clues like Ruth talking about a mayor named Howard the Coward. Like, so we don't know anything about that, but was he a coward because he knew what he had to do and didn't do it? And, it's just sort of, we have to just, I think, make assumptions that there were just things that slipped through the cracks over the years that led to, Tom knows nothing about it. There are old people on the island who, sort of know these stories, but they're being dismissed by Tom and others. And so, we've just sort of been lost to time of what exactly we're supposed to do.
Yeah, I suppose. I'm curious. Hopefully, we do get more kind of information to fill in some of these gaps in season two.
Yeah.
Because I'm really, really kind of curious about that. You have this long, on the one hand, this sort of long history, and as you say, some indications that it's almost like everyone on the island, including or particularly the old timers, kind of know at some level. Um, but have they been through something like this before themselves, even? I wonder. I mean, like, you almost hoped for at some point a number of years to be given
Yep.
in
Yep.
terms of how often this happens or something like that. And we haven't gotten that yet. So
Yeah. Now that
I
would
don't know
that
what we'll.
also, especially in the video, talks about it liking the taste of the fear of the people that it's going to consume, right? So just the use of the word it and the idea of enjoying the taste of the fear that people have, and then a number of years exactly we know what it is in between appearances. This is exactly Stephen King's story, right? And so they're still drawing on that quite heavily. I mean, they've obviously changed some of the details there, but we don't know, I think, necessarily the timeline in between when these things will happen. We just know it will last as long as it takes to get the bells to stop tolling.
Yeah, and look, another thing that I think maybe we should hit on here while it's on the top of my mind is maybe related to something you were saying before about those deaths not counting. I'm not sure all of this actually relates to the entity,
Yeah.
right? Like, but there's this, because you mentioned the boogeyman, we didn't mention the thing with Patricia back in episode 4 with
Mm.
the book and all of that. And it's like, okay, of course, those people don't die, but if they hadn't intervened in the right way, it seems like that was the idea. Like they were all going to walk into the water and drown.
Yeah.
And I don't think that would be in service of the, you know, not Pennywise, but rather just something else, right?
Yeah.
Um, so maybe look, tying this together, that could be one thought. Maybe there is some way in which this is the pact that the entity will protect the Islanders from all that other stuff
Hmm.
if they give the sacrifices or
It's
something
just
like
a
that.
it's
Maybe
just a
that would make sense.
derivative. It's just a derivative of the trolley problem that they talk about in this episode, right? The idea that it's going to be much, much, much worse if you don't just sacrifice the people that I'm demanding right now. And it seems like maybe it is. Again, we haven't done the exact math, but it's going to continue to happen. It sounds
Yeah.
like until those people are given.
All right. So maybe that is the way to read it. Actually, I don't know why I didn't land on that sooner. Now that I think about it, I think that maybe how we're supposed to interpret it. Give me the sacrifices, I protect you from all the other nasty stuff. Um, and rather than the entity being the cause of the boogeyman and all the other nasty stuff, right? Um, Interesting. Yeah. So you mentioned the trolley problem. I guess let's go ahead and go there.
Yeah.
It explicitly mentioned by name in this episode. Um, I'm going to try to avoid turning this into philosophy class, Brian. But thoughts about what this episode, what the show is doing with regard to the trolley problem? I'll let you start.
No, see, I don't know if you can turn this to me to start. You are a philosophy professor. I am. I have certainly studied this, and I am certainly familiar with the concept. And I have heard and found compelling the argument that Ruth gives in this, in this episode that, you know, if fate or karma or whatever it is going to take the lives of these people, then I should just let that happen. Whereas Ruth is saying, making the choice to predictably and knowingly kill one person, I just couldn't do that. I mean, this is obviously the bait of this whole problem. But I just, I tend to fall on the side of, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. This is the Spock and Kirk line from Star Trek, right? And just this is the whole crux of the problem. So I have to turn it back to you and all your experience.
Well, so I mean, I think what's most interesting are there are permutations of it, and
Yeah.
it goes back to Filippo Foot gets the credit, although it's interesting in terms of how she was putting it forward. She was actually talking about something else in terms of like um, bearing false witness against someone to stop a riot or something, and then she shifts the trolley problem. Anyway,
Yeah.
people will focus on the trolley problem. Let's just focus on the trolley problem. There's all sorts of literature out there, and so on. And what I've always found interesting in particular is so the initial setup, the classical trolley problem people will start with, is the idea that there's an out of control train, there's no way to stop it whatsoever,
Yeah.
and it's going to kill multiple people, three, four, five, and pick your number. It doesn't really matter. It's as long as it's more than one.
Yeah.
Unless the train is diverted to another track. There's a fork in the tracks, right? And if you pull this lever, it'll go on the other track. Those multiple people will live, but it's going to kill one person over here.
Yeah.
And part of the point is supposed to be like those are the only options. There's no way to stop the train whatsoever. Um, but then okay. Also throw in here to my awareness, they've done like studies where they poll people on this, and something like 2/3 of people will say, yeah, well, you should pull the lever.
Mm-hmm.
Which certainly makes sense, in particular if you are thinking about utilitarianism. Okay, it's bad that someone's going to die, but it's better for one person to die than
Yeah.
multiple people. But the thing is, in that version, I don't know if that lines up quite well with what happens in Widow's Bay, or at least that
Mm.
would be the question that I would think would be worth pondering for people if you want to kind of delve into ethics in a more philosophical register here for a moment. So, because there's nothing you can do about the train, right? But the lever presents that question: do I pull it or not? You know,
Yep.
and in particular, a utilitarian might argue that if you don't pull the lever, you're just as on the hook for your interaction as you would be for your action, and that it
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense to say that you're somehow responsible for the consequence when you pull the lever, but not responsible for the consequences when you don't pull the lever, right? Like if you see a small child drowning in a pond and you decide, man, I don't feel like saving that kid, and let the child die, well, I mean, aren't you morally responsible for that? You know,
Yeah.
eventually they'll say the same thing. Where I think that the what we get in Widow's Bay is a little bit different, but it's maybe closer to uh, the permutation people refer to it as the fat man permutation. Although, because of woke, it's like we stopped saying fat man. Although on Wikipedia, I looked earlier, they still call it fat man. Anyway, the idea here is the same basic setup, and the train's out of control. But here, the only way to stop the train is not to pull a lever, but you're on a bridge over the tracks, and but you're not alone, right? There's also this fat guy up there. The point being, I take it he's sufficiently large to stop the train. So if you push this guy in front of the train, he'll die. But the train will stop, and you'll save multiple people who are stuck on the tracks. To me, what's philosophically most interesting is that, again, if you pull people with the lever scenario, something like 2/3 of people will say, yeah, you should pull the lever, or I would pull the
Hmm.
lever, depending on how you put the question. But when you make it the question of whether you should push the fat man off the bridge, it flips, and 2/3 of people say no,
Mm.
should not push the guy off the bridge. Whereas from like a strictly utilitarian point of view, it almost seems like it should be the same, right? In both instances, you're sacrificing one life to save multiple others. Um, what is the difference? That's the reason why there are all sorts of articles about this in terms of like how can we pin down a difference here in moral terms, and then now I'll just leave it there because I promise to try to not make this philosophy class. But I think that what's going on in Widow's Bay is closer to that second version,
Yeah.
right? Because although you could well argue that all the weird stuff on this island is like a force of nature or something like that, um, for Tom to decide that the right thing to do is to go and murder Ruth, basically,
Yeah.
in order
Yeah.
to stop the curse, is probably closer to that than the first version with the lever. Although some might argue that there's no difference in one direction or another. I don't know. Thoughts?
Yeah. And this is, my understanding and what I've seen this for is people often call this a extremely complex and almost impossible problem to solve because you're left without, at least in this scenario, in Widow's Bay we have some, but in most of these scenarios you're left without all the context. And here we understand the context. Ruth is, we
Mhm.
believe to be the last descendant, old, lived a full life, had a lot of adventures, it seems, that we've heard in all of her stories. But now the context has completely changed in the sense that, well, if I have to do this, it's now under the under the thought that it will be my son, and that changes the calculus completely. A calculus that Tom is not willing to even consider. He is certainly reluctantly, but he certainly considers. And even despite all the things we hear about Ruth, she's clearly very active. She's clearly very helpful. She's clearly, someone who is still a strong member of the community. He's willing to do it. However, I just am predicting he's not going to be willing to do it for his son. He's going to keep it from people as long as possible.
Yeah, I agree. And another permutation that's out there of the trolley problem. There's a literature on. Okay, you can just say same setup, and now the one person is your kid. Now the
Yeah.
one person is your loved one of whatever kind, your friend, whatever. Now look, I mean, cards on the table. Speaking for myself, I do think that there is a meaningful critique of utilitarianism as a moral philosophy buried in all of this. I just don't think it's straightforward. And in particular, that's the difference I find myself latching on to is the question of um, well, let me just take a step back and approach it another way, right? Like from a certain point of view, it might just be more the idea of triage,
Mm,
right? You got a bunch of people who are injured in a bomb strike or something like that. You're going to make triage decisions that might potentially mean you're just not going to treat people because there's no meaningful sense of saving them, something like that, right? I don't think that's objectionable. But like on the other end of the spectrum, you could go in the direction of saying like, oh, we've got an organ shortage,
mm,
and maybe we'll just kill some young healthy people and take their organs to save more people. And you go, well,
yeah.
that's reprehensible. That's abhorrent. Like so trying to pin down where the differences are. And I think this is meaningfully in between. But definitely in terms of watching a TV show and how it plays on my sentiments, Um, I can't help but say, no, it would be morally wrong to kill Ruth.
Yeah.
I never quite believed that Tom would do it. He actually got a lot closer to doing it than I thought he would. What about you?
Do you think that in what we learned, this may be jumping ahead a bit, but it's a note that I think we're both curious about. In what we've learned, the details that are uncovered, and what Tom tries to do, is it possible that for whatever reason, Ruth cannot be killed? He tries to poison her.
Oh,
She's shot in the back by Bashir and is just popped right back up. I'm very confused, compelled, intrigued by this idea that we may try our best, but the island, the curse, the entity, whatever, is not gonna let us end this thing.
I'm glad you asked this because it was something I was thinking about myself, right? That Ruth is not dead. Apparently, we don't get any further confirmation that she's still alive the next morning or whatever, but presumably she's still alive. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's TV, so doors open for season 2 to start with, oh no, Ruth died. If that's what they want to do narratively, and maybe they're leaving it open that way on purpose. But I did start wondering about this, and because we did see how Richard Warren was in a coffin for hundreds of years and didn't
Hmm.
die. So does that apply to his descendants? And the thing is, it cannot apply to all of his descendants in a straightforward way because we know lots of them died.
Yep. Yep.
Rosemary told us, dead baby, dead baby, I mean, so I guess the question would be, and this would apply to Ruth and then also potentially to Evan, is there, could there be some way in which, I don't know, there's like one chosen out of the generation?
Yeah.
And see,
Yeah.
but even there, I was about to say, like, well, they can't die until there is a further generation. But even there, well, if what Ruth says is true, there is a further generation, so it would no longer apply to her. So I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
we've got some time before season 2 will come out. I don't know if I'm going to do this myself, but if some enterprising Widow's Bay fan wants to work meticulously through that genealogy and try to come up with some theory um, about how it would
Yeah.
apply to some descendants and not others, it's a possibility,
It,
I suppose.
it was just interesting, as you said, Richard Warren, and he knew somehow, some way, he would only die by going out past a certain point in the ocean. Ruth is two pretty traumatic things happened to her, and as far as we know, last we saw her, she was not dead. Is there something else or a similar thing that must be done with her? I think this is just one of another of the great mysteries that we're going to get to keep up with in season 2.
That would be the one possibility that comes to mind for me. I still don't know that it would account for the dead babies,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
is there any chance, if you go back to that genealogy, that everyone who died tried to leave the island?
Hmm.
I do recall the one guy was trying to build a submarine, so maybe it fits on that one.
Yep.
And the other one was, the family who swims together dies together, so maybe it fits
Hmm.
on that one. But I don't know if it would on all of them. And of course, it would fit with Evan's mother. But it seems like that. This is another thing related to that, I guess, in terms of if we're theorizing or trying to parse what the curse is exactly. Does it apply to everyone born on the island? We've been given that impression,
Yeah.
but in terms of the examples we've seen, it does kind of seem like it's only been descendants of Richard Warren.
Yeah. That is certainly my understanding, and there's some real logic problems in the idea that, well, if you try to take all those babies off the island, why did they die and the parents not die if they were descendants? So yeah, there's some explaining to be done there.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the show doesn't have to. Look,
Yeah.
creators of Widow's Bay. You don't have to explain everything. It's fine. It's fine. At least as far as I'm concerned, you know, that's not the point of the show, in my mind, to be able to answer all these little questions. But hopefully they can work enough in to give us um, the grounds to spin out an interpretation ourselves that we want to,
Yeah.
or something. And
Yeah.
I am curious about that. Why doesn't Ruth die? Is Bashir just a bad shot? Because he clearly intends to kill her. Maybe we should talk about that at least a little bit. he because when he leaves after he basically learns like what Tom's planning to do, part of me thought he was going to try to stop him, but of course that was wrong. Uh, he's going to Ruth's house because he doesn't believe Tom has it in him to do what needs to be done.
Yeah, it's. I'm glad we're going this direction because Bashir learns, of course, that his wife Shell, I think is her name, is going to give birth that night, and I think his words are, "I'm not gonna um, damn my child for an island that's cursed," and so he's going to take care of things himself. Um, But with what happens, what we learn, what he fails to do with Ruth, what we obviously know about Evan, we don't know. I guess we have to presume this child was born. Did the storm stop and they were able to leave? We're just not seeing any, we've not seen any of that. And so, yeah, I think what, like we predicted last week, it was sort of a ticking clock of would this happen beforehand, but we're not left with any sort of resolution of what happened other than a doctor telling us this is going to happen tonight. Bashir saying, I'm going to take this into my own hands then.
Yeah, I mean, and now we're in the space of speculating about season two. I would guess that the baby was born, and that one of the defining tensions of season two will be, well, Tom, first of all, like not telling anyone that it's Evan, but trying to say, well, I know Ruth's not the last one. She had a secret baby, and the tension between then him and Wick and Bashir,
Yep.
and then Patricia over here going like, "You still thinking about murdering people? Is wrong." You know what I mean? So what happens to Ruth is interesting in that regard, if she is still around. I did really enjoy her performance on this episode. I'm glad that she got
Yes.
a spotlight here. And there were a couple of things that stood out to me and things that she says besides the reveal that she had a secret baby. She tells Tom a couple other things I just wanted to point out, and I don't know if things will happen with regard to this later on in Widow's Peak. She says something like "Daddy died in the lake."
Yep.
This is very subtle. She doesn't say the ocean.
Yep.
So is there a lake on this island? How big is this island?
It must be next to the mental institution.
Yeah, if there's a lake and Daddy died there, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by the lake.
Yeah.
Uh, she also tells a story about I forget who this was exactly, who maybe was one of the guys who made a pass,
Yeah.
um, who got bit by an animal and then became that animal. So I don't,
And just and Tom gives a great look there, like, what? And just they just move on.
just move on. So I don't know,
And
werewolf kind of thing, possibly.
there was another great line of someone in her family who um, they're always so angry and ornery, and we thought it was just pouting, but it turns out really it was much more than just pouting, and just left at that. And we don't know what that situation was about either. It's just like Tom just hearing these stories. I mean, part of this I can relate. You know, I can remember being in my grandmother's living room and just telling stories that I had no idea what they were about, and just giving us the context that she knew, and just so and so many people making a pass at Ruth. I mean, I guess if you're on a small confined island, it's gonna happen, right?
Well, and she was Miss Widow's Bay too.
Exactly. Why
Um,
wouldn't they?
but yeah, agreed. She definitely reminded me of my grandmother a bit throughout this, and
Yeah.
so of course I'm saying like, you can't possibly kill Ruth. Come on, man, you can't. Um, but oh, that's what I was going to say is that yeah, and yeah, all this weird stuff that she's mentioning, all these stories, tie this back into what we're talking about the trolley problem, which is potentially like heavy, stuff. She's like, that's
Yeah.
just life, you know. All these are her examples, almost, right? Like getting bit by an animal and becoming that animal or whatever. So it's just life. You can't do anything about it. You just gotta you go, do the best you can or what have you. So lots of good stuff there. Tom does throw the brooch into
Mm,
the ocean, into the bay at the end of the episode. And I don't know. I'm not sure how to read that. I'm not sure about its significance. I'm not sure if it matters. Is he just taking some kind of like wild guess of like, hey, maybe this brooch has something to do with it. Let's throw it in the ocean.
yeah.
I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
I think there is an element of grasping at straws here. I think there's also an element. I found his his comments pretty powerful when he was admitting, I think, while he thinks that Ruth is coming to the poison, that he's admitting that he's heard it all along and he should have believed it all along. You know, his wife tried to tell him, other people on the island have tried to tell him, people who've been there forever have tried to tell him. And he's just at a point of being defeated, I think. You know, this idea that I have nothing else I can do, nothing else I can try. If really what it is this idea of having to sacrifice my son, well, then I should have listened all along. I would have sacrificed everybody else on this island before I sacrificed my son. And so he's at a point where I think where he's just absolutely desperate at this point. I'm curious where they're going. Like, is he going to try to take Evan off the island? I hope not, but I just see Tom as a pretty desperate person at this point.
Yeah, and I already said something about this before, but I don't know how long he could keep it up. Meaning, if he's going to try to hide the fact that it's Evan from Wick
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Bashir, how long do you think he can keep that up? One episode, two episodes?
exactly. Yeah,
I mean, like Tom, Tom's Tom, right? I guess that was the sentence I wanted. He's not going to be able to somehow keep secret this knowledge that he has, because if they believe that there is a further descendant, then presumably they're going to be trying to track that person down,
yeah,
or do we get a move in the direction of Tom saying, "Oh well, look, the choice is to either kill Ruth and my son." Like, well, maybe we can find eight degenerates. You're like, are we
yeah.
going in that direction?
This
Where,
is my one the prediction for season two that I feel pretty confident about that Tom is going to try to convince those who are left on the island that the only way to solve this is to sacrifice the eight, you know, and hide the idea of his son, sacrifice the eight, hope that by doing that, you know, there's another whatever 40 years of calm and he can figure out how to, you know, get his son out of there. And, you know, Tom might not be around then anyway. So he's going to try to divert the attention away from the idea that there might be a descendant to, oh, we now have seen these videos. We know that we need to sacrifice people. I think that's going to be his strategy.
yeah, probably. And then you try to make it the tourists, or
Yeah.
what exactly happened there. I can see the comedy in that. Um, let's see. Definitely looking forward to season two. Oh, one thing. I mean, did you read it as the teens locking the transgender guy into that room, or I thought this was a little unclear. So I don't know if you have any further thoughts on it as to whether they locked him in or somehow the door closed and was locked. Because it does seem
Yeah.
like Evan is trying to reopen the door, but he can't until after the guy's been
In
such a
my
disaster.
in my two watches, I've come away firmly on the side of that door locked on its own. And once the sacrifice was in there and the door is closed, that's it. There's no getting in until it's over.
Okay. So are they just lucky that they didn't close the door, the kids,
Yeah,
I mean,
I
or
think
is it
I think
because
so.
Evan was in the room? All right, maybe the door has to be closed. I don't know. We'll see. Probably there's some more film footage they can watch that has more detailed instructions. But yeah,
Yes,
when exactly
and
is that footage from?
this was an important thing. I wish I saw where I read this from. I would give it credit. They are in emergency shelter. This is very lost. They are emergency shelter three. So that means that there are at least two other emergency shelters. Does that mean there are more videos? Does that mean there's more to uncover? So these are things obviously we're going to get to.
Okay. Yeah, it gives you the other Dharma stations.
There you go. There you
Oh
go.
boy. And so going back to the priest briefly, because I'm really starting to wonder if we're ever going to follow up on this further, or if the show's given us all it will. He the bells are tolled. So then he finds the text that tells him, "Oh, I hope you never have to deal with this, but if you do, we don't see any more." I think we can presume that it goes on to tell him that they're going to have to
Yeah.
sacrifice one person for each tolling of the bells. What I'm still wondering about is, what does he go see out there when he goes to find that well or whatever? But I guess we don't get anything further. I'm just going to guess he somehow gets verification of the existence of the dark entity thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then says, of course, well, I'm not going to do this. I'm just going
Not more than
to hang
that. Yeah.
myself instead. Yeah, we'll see. I'm curious if we return to him as well. It continues to feel a little bit to me like Toby Huss was underused here.
Definitely.
Although the cast of the series is just amazing. You know what I mean? Like Toby Huss was underused. Man, Jeff Hiller was underused. I mean, he gets some bail in this episode. It's quite enjoyable. You know, it's an Emmy Award winning actor you've got at your disposal here, and
Yes.
Jeff Hiller is like a really tertiary kind of character in all of this. So, I mean, I guess from that, segue to the last thing you put on our sheet here, which is season MVP. Is that what you meant by this?
Yeah. I mean, just if I gave you Wick, Patricia, and Tom, you get one MVP. Who gets it?
I mean, it's Patricia, right?
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah, Katie one. Yeah. And it's not all about awards, but
Yeah.
when it comes to the awards, it's also along those lines where I wouldn't be surprised if she's winning an award.
Yeah.
And I don't know
I
if
agree.
Matthew Reese is, although yeah, really just because of the competition. I mean, I think Matthew Reese is great in this series. So I
Yeah.
mean, I don't
100%
know.
right.
He does a really good job. I saw some interesting stuff with Katie Dipple reading an interview about it and talking about the casting. And now I'm forgetting the casting director's name. They mentioned it in the article. Anyway, but who recommended Matthew Reese actually? And like Katie Dipple's initial reaction was a little unsure until they actually talked to him, and pretty quickly was like, "Oh, this guy's hilarious and he's perfect." And
Yeah.
he never, because he never is like trying too hard to be funny. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
He's playing the premise straight, and that leads to the humor that you want it to lead to. So he's definitely doing a great job, and so is Stephen Root, who I pretty much always enjoy, and everyone else, man. Dale Dickey, Kevin Carroll.
Yes.
Probably should. I don't have Ruth's. I looked this up earlier too. Whoever plays Ruth, whatever her name is, is also very good.
Oh yeah. I
Um,
forget her name.
I'm trying to find it real quick. I don't know. Just kind of want to give people credit on our widely listened to podcast where you know. Let me find it quickly. Yeah, Kay Callan
Yeah.
is credit there. And yeah, I mean, just really, really good all around on this one. Let's see. I don't know. Further things we're going to talk about here as we wrap up?
I think we're good. Very excited to see when we get for season 2.
Yeah, me too. And, the plot has hooked me ultimately. I was thinking about this because I saw someone asking about the show because it is so out there, like people are watching it all over the place, and whether it hooks you immediately or not. And I saw a couple people saying that it didn't really hook them until episode 3, which wasn't my experience. I don't think it was yours
Mm-hmm.
either.
Mm-mm.
But I think it must be about the plot. That must be a
Yeah.
thought about the plot.
Yeah.
I thought episode 1 and episode 2 were both just hilarious, but the plot kind of doesn't really fully get going maybe until after episode 3 or something like that. Um, and I ultimately am hooked on that level as well, even though I
Yes.
personally I'd watched the version of the show that was just like horror premise of the week with comedy as well.
Yeah. Exactly.
You hardly need a plot. So anyway, looking forward to season 2. Hopefully we don't have to wait too long. And thanks always for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed it, please do leave us a good rating, review, all that good stuff. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Greatly appreciate it. Hit thumbs up on this video if you enjoyed it. Next up, we're going to shift gears and be talking about The Bear. So if you want to subscribe to the podcast, and also you can keep an eye out on the YouTube. The final season of The Bear comes out next week. So we're going to shift to Friday probably to record on that. And the following week, we're going to pick up with Silo season 2. We covered season 1 on the podcast. I'm sorry, no, we didn't. We covered season 2 on the podcast, and it's not season 2 that's coming out; it's season 3 that's coming out. You can find articles on TVObscast.com about season 1 that I wrote and season 2. But as far as the podcast goes, we covered season 2. We didn't cover season 1. We weren't doing this yet. But if you want to go back and revisit those, you can find videos on YouTube as well. And we'll be here week to week covering Silo. So hopefully, if you found us through Widow's Bay, we'll keep with us. If you haven't watched Silo yet, yeah, go check it out. It's also on Apple TV. And first, we'll be back in about 10 days talking about the final season of The Bear. And we'll see you then.
All right. Looking forward to that. See you then.